Welcome to episode 4 of the Inspire Creator series. This week, we meet Richard from Only Van's life. Richard travels with his wife Lisa and baby boy Rory. Together, the family travel across the UK, Europe and Morocco, and they've experienced it all, from caravan living to epic road trips, and now they're navigating life on the road full-time in their motorhome, sharing every twist, turn and toddler milestone with you. Hey mate, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. You all right?
Yeah, good. Ooh, you're outside.
Yeah, it's too hot inside.
Yeah. How's it going? How are the travels?
To be fair, like I say, I'm never ever ill, and from about went out for a couple of drinks at a beach bar about 3 kilometers down the front.
Yeah.
And the only thing I can put it on, because my wife has not been ill, or my son hasn't been ill. It was just some like a bowl full of like salted cashews, and I scoffed them like.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that I can think of. But I've been so. I still don't feel like 100% now. So literally, I've had a shower before this. It's probably the first time I've had a shower since about Friday.
Oh, mate, that's terrible. So what, you think of food poisoning or something like that?
Yeah, I think so. Because at first I thought it might have been a bug or something like that. But like I say, because nobody else seemed to catch it, I thought, well, it only can only be that.
Oh, mate, that's such a shame. And you've got to do a shift. You've got to do a shift right now after this.
Oh yeah. Oh, I had to work. Well, I was on gardening leave, so I had to start a new job on Monday.
Yeah.
So like I say, on Monday, I finished at 7 o'clock, and like for the last 20 minutes of my shift, I just lay on the back bed of my motorhome, just like with a laptop by my side, like what everyone thinks that you. When people think that you work from home, people think that's what you do is you just lie on your bed, whatever, with your laptop. So for 20 minutes, I lived the myth. So I just lay on the back bed, and I just by the time I finished my shift, 7:10, I fell straight asleep, and then didn't get up until like 7 o'clock next morning. Slept for 12 hours, and I'm normally an early riser, me, like late to bed, early riser.
Oh, mate, that's how you know you've got to let it do its thing. I'm the same. I'm up at like 4 or 5 a.m. You know, love to run. Winter's like the hardest for me because I love going out when the sun's on the come up.
Yeah.
Oh, mate. But yeah, if I suddenly find I'm like tired or croaky, I'm like, nah, I'm gonna throw in the towel right now. Otherwise, it just sucks. I hate being sick.
I've historically always done the same. Like I've always found that like running in the morning or whatever has always been dead good for me. So obviously, since I've become settled down with my wife or whatever, and become content, I've probably put on about probably 2 stone. So that was my plan, was to start walking, running and jogging a bit, and then trying to get to running 5k, 10k a day or whatever. And I think I'd walked 10k in the morning because I was on gardening leave. So I'd walked 10k on the Friday morning. I'd walked 10k on the Saturday morning, and then came back out, lie down on Saturday afternoon, and then just after that, just felt horrendous.
Man, you got to take care of yourself. And so, just to make sure I understand, are you still constantly traveling and working remotely, or like what's your rhythm like right now? So
to be fair, because of needing Wi-Fi or whatever, we're probably for this next sort of 5 or 6 months, we're just literally parked up on a campsite in Morocco.
Nice, love that.
So that's just like my wife's inside. She does a few hours in the morning or whatever, and then I mainly work afternoons and stuff like that. Yeah, just honestly, the winters in the UK are just grim. Like you wake up in the morning, you go to work in the morning, it's dark. You come back in the night, it's dark.
It's the worst, So I'm originally from Australia, and the thing is, in Australia, it's always sunny, right? So you kind of take the weather for granted. One thing I love about being in the UK is that when summer comes, everyone's ecstatic because we know how grim it is during winter. But then winter comes, and it's just like. Sun's not coming up. It's 3 p.m. You're at the office and you feel like it's like 10 p.m.
It's like you take daylight for granted. But sometimes, in Greater Manchester, sometimes you'd be sitting there and you'd look outside and it'd be like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you'd be thinking, how could it be going dark already? How is that right? How's that fair?
I know, right? And if it's like summertime, like let's say you're working till like 8 or 9, you come out and the sun's still up. It's like I could squeeze in a beer.
Yeah, that's how we get to them.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. And so, just to confirm, your line of work, like shift work, what kind of work are you doing to be able to support yourself as you travel around?
So I work for an insolvency practitioner. So assessing people who are in financial difficulties and stuff like that. That's just what I've historically always done. When we first started traveling in January this year, the plan was that we budgeted for having 12 months off. That was just so, mate, listen, I've acquired a cat.
Yeah, I figured that. I figured with that tail coming up.
I'm like the world's worst Bond villain. So we budgeted for 12 months. But the problem was because we never really were going to come to Morocco. That Morocco just sort of one of the things that sort of just happened. So the plan was we were just going to travel around like Northern Europe. But even the weather in Northern Europe, it's getting dark at 6 and it's dropping to like 0 or like 1s and 2s. So you can't do anything in the evening. The only thing that you can do is go out somewhere and eat in a restaurant and have a few beers and stuff like that. Because we were only in a short wheelbase Ford Transit when we first set off. Yeah. So there was just, especially with a 4 or 5 month old baby, there was just zero space. So we just thought let's try and chase a bit. So we ended up, 2/3 of the way down Morocco.
Oh, mate, you must get messages all the time from people saying that you're living the dream. Honestly.
Yeah, well, we do. But then for every 10 that you get people that say, "Oh, it's the same as everything," you get 99 messages that will say, "Oh, I wish I'd have done something like this when my kids were younger," and good on you, the baby's living his best life. And then you'll get some Karen who will say, "Well, he's not getting any interaction with other children." And then you're like, "Well, he's what?" Do you know what I mean? So it's not like he's going out to boot clubs and stuff like that. And he goes out and about, like I say, we take him on walks all the time or whatever, and when he sees other people, he sees babies or dogs, cats, camels, horses. So if anyone tells me that he's missing out on any sort of sensory development from being with us, well, it's not only that, it's about because he's always been with us and he's always had his mum and his dad there. So it's always handy that when, like, if you've had a rough night, you can just say to the one, I need 15 minutes break here, just take over. Yeah. So it's always been useful for us to be able to do that. But a lot of people do. A lot of people do say, and we are to an extent. It's not all candy floss and lollipops. Like you have to empty your own toilet, which ain't great. But like I say, I'd rather be here doing what we're doing than in an office in Stockport or in an office in Stoke or something like that.
100%, mate. You only get really one shot at this thing, and I'm a huge supporter of what you're doing. I remember it. So the first time you traveling around with a newborn popped on my radar, I was in Paris and I went into a cafe and I met this really lovely couple and they were from America. And I was like, "Oh, how old's your newborn?" They were like, "Oh, about 5-6 months." I was like, "Okay." And I was like, "What's the plan?" And they were like, "Oh, we're just traveling around the Schengen area of Europe," because he could remote work and she was on maternity. And I was like, how is that? Like, is it stressful? They were like, "No, it's great. People give up their seat, it's actually really comfortable. And it's like not an opportunity you get to capitalize on." And I think it never occurred to me. And once you see it and you see it done well, because they seem really organized and structured, I was like, I can do that. That's definitely that's officially on my radar now as a thing to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's in theory, because obviously even our family, when we said, "Oh, this is what we're going to do," because he was 8 weeks early, which is what prompted it in the first place. So he was born in September, but he should have been due to the middle of October. So he was 4 months old, but it should have only been like 2.5 months old when we set off. But it's not as difficult as what people think it is. As long as they're warm, fed, then really, to an extent, the surroundings are almost irrelevant. As long as you've got a human interaction, and stuff like that. But we found it dead easy. And to be fair, we found, especially Spain and Portugal and Morocco, are so welcoming and accommodating of children, like more so than the UK. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Yeah, like they just love kids. Like it was on this campsite actually when we were here in May. And I was just sitting working, and there was like a Moroccan scout tribe, and there must have been like 40, 15, 16, 17-year-old boys and girls, and they all came over and they were like, "Oh my God, it's a baby!" And they all kissing his feet and said, "Oh, can I hold him?" And it's like you know, having roll out the pictures with the baby and kissing his feet, and you're just thinking like it's so surreal. But the thing is that that's what I found, and that's the whole thing with travel. Really, is that like if we'd have had this conversation 12 months ago, I would have told you that the UK is the greatest country on earth, and a real patriot or whatever. But I'll tell you what, like we're nowhere near that, unfortunately. Like just everything. Not so much France. France is a rip-off. The UK is a rip-off. But like Spain and Portugal and Morocco, is just such a better way of life and just such a better mentality.
Yeah. I feel like it's definitely different. I was raised in Australia, for example, and I remember like growing up, I was like 17, and I was definitely like an awkward teenager. And I remember going to South America, where my family were from originally, and I remember I went to a party, and in Australia at least, like people start dancing after like they've had a couple of drinks. Immediately everyone's like, "Should we start dancing?" And they start playing music and they start dancing, and I'm like, "What?" Like, and there's just in this room with all these, like I have no idea what to do. I don't know what these moves are, and I just realized like that's just like that is just what they do. There's just this natural warmth, or like in some parts, like some members of my family socioeconomically, they're not as comfortable as you might say like we are in the UK or in Australia, but they're so happy. And they're so like well fed, and the food is so tasty, and everyone just seems really just excited all the time. And I think it was the first time it opened my eyes to just, I guess, differences in energy, in how people appreciate space and each other. And it's great that you guys are traveling a lot. I think, and I think your baby will appreciate it.
Yeah, and the one of the best ones we got was I think there's always an element of jealousy in there, which is the baby won't remember any of it. That's one that a couple of times from the real Karens. The baby, you're not doing it for him, you're doing it for yourself. So just admit it. Which is, there is an element of that, because by us being here, it means that we have a better mental health, which then means that we are. And I just think it's just like such a mad way of like looking at like the world, to look at like a situation through those glasses and just think, what, I'm going to try and find something to bring somebody down for something like that. I don't see, like, people seem unable to, like, be it on social media or something like that, people seem unable just to say nothing. Like, social media has provided people the ability to have an opinion on absolutely everything, whereas historically, people wouldn't. Which is ironic, really, for someone that spends so much time on social media and content creating and stuff like that. But, and selfishly only wanting the positive elements of social media, really, as opposed to getting some of the negatives and stuff like that. But it's like you get people who like I say, we got that one quite a bit, which was, you're not doing it for you. You're not doing it for the baby, doing it for you. And the baby won't remember anything. Then you just have to go back and just say, well, thanks very much for that. But we'll have, probably the best part of 100 hours worth of videos on YouTube. We'll have millions on the internet, and we'll be able to sit down and say, well, this is what we did from the moment you were born, and we made a little video, and this was you then. And do you know what I mean? Rather than having like a shoebox in a loft somewhere with loads of little, 4x6 pictures.
Yeah.
So, well, we've got the same thing here, but actually it's real life moving story. These are all the places that you've been, or when you start school, if you do start school, if we homeschool, you'll be able to take. I've been to however many countries it is that he's been to now.
I think it also depends on like values and how you want to approach the different journeys, right? Like, so for context, like what led us to reach out to you initially was we had an idea for a tech startup, which I'll explain in a sec. And we're not rich, we don't have like Ivy League connections, or we don't know any venture capitalists or anything like that. We're just 4 people that had an idea, and we're going to do the best with the resources we have. And one of the things that we decided to do early on was, okay, well, maybe we're not the only ones that think this is a cool idea. Let's talk to other people about it. And maybe there's like a content opportunity there. But separately, let's just document everything we do. Like, let's take this startup journey And even if we completely don't succeed, let's just remember it as that time we took that thing and we took it to the extreme. It's like in my case, I resigned from my job. I'm now on day 15 of doing this full time. I've only got 6 months of runway, but my thinking is like, if I'm going to lose sleep for 6 months, I want it to be over something I'm really, really excited about.
Yeah.
And let's say, a year from now, nothing worked out and I'm like crippled and upset about it. I want to look back at these videos and remember that time that I was really excited,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Things like that, and I think that is good. And I think I've historically always been, whether it's been my work life before, I've always been a doer. Do you know what I mean? There's like, what has always bored me is sitting around and thinking, what, or I might go do this thing, and then spending 6 months thinking about going to do a thing, or just you could have just done it 6 months ago, or like we did some talks at the Caravan and Motorhome Club at the NEC. There's like every they do 2 a year, like a massive big thing for caravan and motorhomes, and we talked about our time in Morocco, and I was dead nervous, and I was thinking to myself, it's becoming a bit of a stress now. I wish we hadn't done it. But that's at the time. But in the moment that you do it and you think, well, the same as anything, nothing is ever as bad as what you think it's going to be. It's always your mind that tells you how bad something's going to be. So I've always just been a motto. It gets me into trouble a lot of the time. So I'd rather ask for forgiveness than ask for permission.
Yeah, 100%. We have a motto in my family. It came from my great grandma. My grandpa he was at a party. He found out that America was offering visas to Peruvians, and he went straight home. Turns out his mom had saved all the money he'd ever given her, and she gives him, I think it was like, I can't remember how much it was in Peruvian dollars, not much. And she's like, go get the visa. And she used this expression, lanzate, which means throw yourself forward. And that's become like a family motto. Whenever we get a chance, like it's like, you know what, just do it, just get it done.
Yeah.
Look, like enjoy it. So yeah, totally aligned. And so, how did you come to be on this journey? Like, is it like a discussion you had with your partner beforehand, and you guys were like, when you met, is this something you both wanted to do? Like, how did this start?
Well, to be fair, it was the beef now is. He's 15 months old, no, 14 months old, 14 and a half months old. So me and Lisa have only been together for just over 2 years now. So we are the very definition of a whirlwind romance. And I was married. Lisa was married. We found out yesterday that she's now officially divorced. So that means I'm going to have to get married again now, no doubt. And I was married at the time, and my stepdad at the time, he was in work on a Friday afternoon, finished at 2:30 in the afternoon because he didn't feel very well, and was dead by the Monday afternoon. So like, he'd gone from being at work to dead at 96 hours at the age of 62, and I was married. And then a week later, I'd put all my clothes in my car and just left my wife because I was so unhappy, and I just thought, I thought if I've got 96 hours left of my life, I thought, I'm not spending it being miserable or being unhappy. And Lisa went through a similar thing with Sarah Harding when Sarah Harding died from Girls Aloud. She died of cancer. And she went through the same thing. And I was working for an insolvency company in Manchester. She worked for an IT company in Glasgow. We met on a work Zoom. Yeah. Like, because their company was providing IT into us.
On a work Zoom, okay.
And the companies went out for some food.
Yeah.
And then a couple of weeks later, she slid into my DMs and just said, I'm down in Manchester or whatever. Where's the best place to go for a Sunday dinner? And then she came down or whatever. We spent a bit of time together. And then she went back a couple of days after, left her husband, who she'd been with for 16 years.
Yeah.
Bought her clothes down to me in Stockport. And then the master plan originally was that we were going to get a caravan on a seasonal pitch.
Yeah.
So before the Christmas that year, so we got together officially in October. We bought a caravan in the December, put it on a seasonal pitch in the middle of January. So we thought, because we'd had such stressful jobs, and we thought, we enjoy being in a caravan that much. We thought the more stuff you have, the more stressed you are. So we thought what we wanted to do was we wanted to downsize, get rid of all the shite that we didn't use and we didn't need, and then just go and be campsite wardens. So we'll just live on a campsite and we'll just do jobs on the campsite, live there for free or whatever. So we got the caravan on the seasonal pitch on the 15th. Rory was conceived on the 17th. So then it was a cold winter, you see. So we had to then we couldn't campsite warden idea because it's not really conducive to having a baby. So then we got a camper van because we got bored of being on the same campsite all the time. And then everything was going great with the pregnancy. And then about 7 months in, Mum started having some bleeds. So started off little, and then almost weekly got worse and worse and worse. About 6 months in, sorry. And then there was one time she had a big bleed. So then he took her in hospital and said, for the next 3 months, you're just not going to be able to leave hospital because she had something called placenta previa, which means that the placenta was completely covering where the baby's head should go. So the baby was trying to come down naturally, but the placenta allowing it. So it was then forcing it, bleeding. And he said if it ruptures, you'd be dead within 7-8 minutes. So there's nothing that you've got to stay in hospital just in case it ruptured. So she stayed in hospital for a bit, was doing all right. And then she had another big bleed. And he said, this was on a Thursday. And then they said, right, we're going to try and get you through to next week because ideally they want to try and get you to 35 weeks. That's like the promised land where they don't worry about stuff. So we're going to try and get you through the next couple of weeks. And then she had another bleed later on. They said, right, we're going to put you in on Tuesday. So I'd stayed in the emergency ward with her on the Thursday night and then set off for work on the Friday morning, got to work like 9:05 on the Friday morning. And she said, you got to come back. They're going to, because she'd had another bleed. They said, right, they're going to have to just take him in. They're going to take him out this afternoon. So I had to drive straight back from work, which is about another 40-minute drive. And then, 1:30, honestly, that day, probably it's funny really because it's like my only son, like the heir to the throne. Do you know what I mean? One of the, it's something I've never really talked, not even to my mum. I'm the proper mummy's boy. I'm dead close to my mum, and I just can't talk about that day. It's probably when, and it's a different example, but it's kind of that's what I think what PTSD must feel like, or what, or like people that go to war and they see just have horrendous experiences at war. So we go in. And you cut her open and all that sort of stuff. Everything's going fine. I remember the woman said to me before we went in, she said, Dad will be with you the whole time. So don't worry. I was like, yeah, I'll be there the whole time. I said, if things start getting a bit unpleasant, then, we might ask Dad to go outside or whatever. So we went in. Everything was fine. Baby came out, crying, cut the cord or whatever, which was the most unpleasant thing in the whole world. It was like trying to, with blunt scissors, like really grisly steak, the umbilical cord was. Which was awful, but that was fine. And then they said, "Well, you're doing dead well, Mum. Everything's fine." And at this point, you're thinking, I'm probably going to make tipping point here at this rate. On BBC One. But then they said, "Right, we're on the top layer of skin." So then I sat there after she said that, and about 5 minutes went past, and I thought, "What else is going on a bit?" And then 10 minutes later, still no joy. And then I just remember looking at the floor, and just by the surgeon's feet, there was just constant drips of blood. And on his light up the top, there was blood all over there. And they kept calling for more blood and more blood. And it got up to 15, 20 minutes after that. And I was thinking, what's going on here now? What's taking so long? And, she's starting to feel she's starting to feel a bit funny. So then we call more blood in and there's more blood on the floor. And I'm thinking something's not right here. So then they say, right, let's get Dad out now and let's go take Dad, get a cup of tea. Something that should have taken, we'd already been in there for an hour and a half now. It should have only been in there for 40 minutes. So then they take me over the corridor then and put me in a room, shut the door, and then for the next 40 minutes, I've got no idea what's going on. I don't know whether, at that point, whether don't know if the baby's fine, I don't know if she was going to die. And like, it was probably one of the darkest 40 minutes of my whole life, really. Just didn't know if I was going to have any of them, none of them, or whatever. And about 45 minutes later, the woman, one of the nurses, comes in to me or whatever, and I said, you know, like, is she still alive? And they said, yeah, she's still alive. She said, God, she's not in a great state though. So she'd lost 10 liters of blood. Like she was bleeding out as fast as they could put it into her. Like 15 years ago, whatever, she wouldn't have made it. The only difference now to what it was before is they've got a machine now that catches all your blood that you bleed, cleans it, and then puts it back into your body.
Whoa.
So they couldn't put it in fast enough because every time they were putting it in, so they had to do an emergency hysterectomy. So then she was in intensive care, like unconscious she didn't wake up. She was in like intensive care. I've never seen so many wires coming out of a person before in your whole life. Have you seen The Matrix?
Yeah.
They've all got the wires in him when they first come out.
Yeah, when he wakes.
She's got scars on her neck where she had wires coming in and all that. And so she was in intensive care, unconscious. He'd had to have a blood transfusion because he wasn't looking great. So he had, wires. He was in an incubator, wires coming out of him, and it was just a flipping awful day, really. And it was a low, like in a hospital full of hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people. It was just a lonely. It was a lonely time, made worse by the fact it was my mum's having a 60th birthday party that night as well. So I should have been there for that, but which was just irrelevant in the end. So after that, they just said, right, just go and have an hour now. We need to get mum wired up and baby's all right. I just got in my car and I just drove for about 2 hours. Went to my mum's party for about 10 minutes. Had a kind of full fat Coke and then just drove back. But the thing was, the guilt comes from was where do you spend your time? Not out by the fact that they were opposite ends of the hospital. So if you were with mum, you thought, I need to be up there with him, really. And then if I'm up there and I think, well, what about if mum wakes up and I'm not there? Or, do you know what I mean? You start thinking mad things then. But anyway, long story short, long story. So after that, when we all got home on like the 21st of September, Lisa was getting bought out of her house by her ex-husband. And the plan was we were going to pay off all our debts and, all that stuff. But we just thought, YOLO. So we just thought, going to go and just drive around for 12 months and just because we didn't know, because there were times when I didn't know if we were all going to have it tomorrow. So in case we didn't or we don't, because it's something we're just going to do together for a bit.
So it sounds like you've had like a couple of experiences now where kind of, I guess the expression would be like, the death was kind of knocking on a door there. Yeah. Is that part of what's led you to just?
Yeah, nothing brings you closer to your own. Nothing brings you closer to life than mortality.
Yeah.
And we just didn't want to spend. We just wanted to go and have some nice time together. So if anything ever happened in 10 years, 20 years, we've always got this, especially documented. We've got this that we can always look back on together or whatever, rather than think, we'll pay the bills off, and we talk about leaving bricks and mortar behind and escaping a 9 to 5, and we didn't want to go and pay off credit cards and loans and stuff like that, and just continue just to live that sort of a relatively normal, a conventional life, because we had an unconventional experience together.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how it's not like we instinctively just do the things we want to do. It's almost like we have to have this, not negative, but like we need to have like an impactive experience happen for us to suddenly realize,
What was yours?
I think so. For me, I'd been in So I moved here 7 years ago, and I got a job in sales. And one thing I didn't calculate at the time was that if I got a job in the UK and I got sponsored, um, that would mean I'd have to stay in sales the whole time. And I got into sales because I just kind of fell into it. A lot of people who I know work in sales fell into it, and in my case, I didn't. So the things I found out about myself in the UK is, one, I'm an introvert. Didn't realize that. The other thing is I have now what's been diagnosed as severe generalized anxiety disorder. And so now I have my permanent residency, but I almost put myself into a corner where I had to work in a job where your job is never done until you hit your or exceed your number. So, if 8 hours goes by, if you're not closer to getting your number, that 8 turns into 18, for example, every day for 7 years. And so it got to a point where, like, from a mental health standpoint, I'd be waking up and I'd be almost crying on my desk in the mornings, but I'd have to keep going because I really wanted to live in the UK. And I promised myself that when I was able to, I would save up enough and I was going to do something. And I got my permanent residency, and then I had an idea, and then I don't know if you believe in things like the universe, but things just started falling into place. I shared my idea with a guy who could build it. I had a best friend who wanted to be in product management. The guy who could build it, his name is Luca. He met another fellow named Dimitri who made it look cool. And then suddenly it was like, do you know what? If I do this right now, I could do 6 months of this. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know where it's going to go, but I want to be able to tell my kids that I took that gamble. I don't want to be like, oh, you should start a business one day. I was like, for me, because first generation migrants in my family, a lot of what was discussed at the dinner table was changing like your financial situation. Like, oh, how do we, get enough together to buy a nice place to live, kind of thing. Yeah, and so I would say it's like crying a lot before work every morning. At some point, it makes you want to do a different thing. you know. But like, I guess how like now, like kind of reflecting on your journey so far, like how is it feeling to you? Is it still exciting? Is it normalized? Like, what's it like as you kind of look at it all?
It's an excellent question. Is it? Probably is normalized. Our dream, our vision is to be in a position where, because we don't want to, and we're not fussed about having millions of pounds or whatever, but what we would love to do would be to have enough money where we just didn't have to work, live relatively comfortably, and just do the content bits and stuff like that, and just be able to potter about. A lot of the stuff that we do is, or that I do, is so heavily internet dependent that you almost feel like you need to have the Wi-Fi. Do you know what I mean? And then the Wi-Fi then become, and you know what? Maybe it's partly, is it a safety net, or maybe it's even a bit of a comfort blanket thing, because you would normally. But don't get blessed. The site that we're on at the moment in Morocco, like I say, we'll probably stay here for 4 months. I think 4 or 5 months, and then so I would like to travel about a bit. But I mean, this has got everything that we could ever need here. So it has normalised, because we've been on the road pretty much now, coming up to 12 months. Granted, when we started, like I said, we were on a short wheelbase Ford Transit, so our space has over doubled, probably, really, in hindsight, in terms of inside space. Mm-hmm. Benefit of that is that when you've got a baby, you can put a baby there, and then the baby is still there. But we're in a position now as if we put the beef there, it could be anywhere in 10 minutes. Yeah. But what's been nice, really, is that like all these sort of big milestones, like his first tooth, and like he's getting to that point now where he's crawling and he's standing up, and it won't be long now till he's sort of walking about. And we've done all that stuff together. And historically, dads are at work for 10 hours a day, 11 hours a day, but we've all been able to go through them all together, which has been good.
How how did the content side of it come up? Like, did you always have like a creative streak to you, or is it something you both learned?
To be fair, when we decided we were going to get a caravan, we watched. I'm I'm an idea. So the dynamic of our relationship is that I'm the ideas guy, and I say to my lady, I say, right, this is what I want. I like this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and then my lady will go and do it. So she's like the IT, the techie person. So she's done all the stuff for the website, and she does all the SEO and all that sort of stuff. And I just say, I've got this idea, and then she'll say, a good idea or it's a bad idea, and then that's how it works. But the reason why we started doing content in the first place was just because when we were looking at caravan reviews, when we decided we were going to go get a caravan, was that we just looked at some of the videos and we just thought, literally anyone can do this. And then that's just sort of how we started, really. And then we thought we've got like a little website and all that sort of stuff, and we put blog posts on it and stuff like that. It's just, it is, I think, what's difficult and what separates the 99.99% to the 0.1% is finding something which has not been done before, or something which is completely new. Because what you tend to find is that a lot of the stuff on the internet now that you see is just recycled. It's just something that somebody else has done, a different creator or a different person on YouTube, and somebody else has just done it in a slightly different way. So the 0.1% of the people that get an idea and do it before anybody else has done it. So what our plan is, and our plan to become self-sufficient and sustainable is to try and just do as much video content as nice, because it's something that you can see and you can almost feel it's more tangible. But our sort of focus is going to be on trying to put as much content on the website as possible through blogs and SEO and ranking for stuff. And then once you're on the website, try and make money through AdSense, try and make money through affiliates and all that sort of stuff. And just to try and drive as much traffic to the website as possible and filter down through the website is our master plan. But everything is just, it's just, especially working, is time. And with a baby, it's time. Because we'd love to be able to sit there and say, right, Mum, you throw your job in, and then you just go and do 3 SEO ranking blogs a day, or however many a day, which obviously over the course of a month at 3 a day, is 90. But it's, we can't really at the moment afford to turn down the 13, 14, 1500 quid that she gets. And so it's just constantly trying to, you almost, like sometimes we'll lie in bed at the beef will go down at 9, and then we'll be in bed at 10, and I'll be doing something, and she'll be doing something. And it's trying to get time, but it's an investment of time. And the investment in time is obviously before we're in a position, because we're not quite in a position that you're in just yet, which is there's 6 months. But if we go and have 6 months off, but if we work, I always say, right, if we could just work hard and we have a work for the next 12 months, then we'll be in a position perhaps in 12 months' time when we can then look at, right, you then become a worker for us as content creators, as a brand, and you will then be targeted on driving traffic and affiliate marketing and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. That's the master plan,
Yeah. Mate, I'm telling you right now, you're going to do it. You just got to persist at it. And it is really, I don't know how it is for you, but I've found like when you have something like that, when the idea pops up and you suddenly have a clear vision and it's so clear and you're doing something else and not the thing you're really clear about. I don't know. Sometimes for me, it would feel a little stressful. After the idea was kind of on, I'd be in my last months of work because I decided to do a career break first. And then it was like, oh man, it's hard to get motivated when I've got all this stuff. Yeah.
It's we just need to win the lottery. That's
Yeah, right.
we just need to. Well, to be fair, but before we can win the lottery, we've got to start entering the lottery.
Yeah.
So the first step, really, on paper, should be to. And the thing is that what I suppose what we're trying to do is not as a concept. It's not unique because other people are doing it. But I think that there is enough. I think there's enough of a market for us just to take a little bit of it. I say I'm not too fussed about taking all of it. I just want enough to be able for us to potter about and just drive around or whatever, see nice places, and then just keep being able to do like new content and stuff like that. Because I'd quite like to sit there and do like YouTube videos and all that sort of stuff but like I find YouTube's a bit of a funny one as a content source, really, because it's I don't know. I had a couple of like gets you done it. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, if something's going well, you're like on top of the world.
Yeah.
But then, like, if you do something and you think to yourself, "Oh my god, I've spent like so much time in that, on that, working on that," and you're thinking, it does get you sometimes. And I suppose that's the thing. And you always see the sort of the meme, really, of you're always on a slight upward trajectory.
Yeah.
And most people give up when they start getting tired or bored or they're not getting results, which tends to be about here. And then always about here when something tends to spark or whatever. So, we've had a rally this month, and we've got loads of short content going out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just you just got to keep constantly doing it, and even sometimes if you don't want to do it, you've just got to keep doing it and just keep ploughing on, and just because I think that, like, when people say that YouTube hates us or this hates us or whatever, it doesn't. You're just not doing it quite right, and a lot of the time it's easier to always look outwards and blame other people rather than think, well, you know what, let's just go back to basics and let's just start again and. Let's just try again and keep going and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So it just, because we want to have 6 or 7 things that generate a few £100 a month.
Yeah.
All your eggs in one basket. So whether that's Amazon affiliates, YouTube, Spreadshirt, Awin, who we've got some affiliate stuff with as well. That's what we want to try and do, so if one starts going wrong, then you still can rely on your other 5 or 6 of income. So that's what we're trying to do, and it's just trying to get them up to speed as much as you can. Yeah,
mate, you can absolutely do it. I have full faith in you. And it sounds like you guys have an amazing team there. An experience that I have, which is going to go into the contrary of everything I've just said, but sometimes like life gives you a situation and you take a lesson from it and you're like, I really don't want that lesson, but it's that lesson. When I first got into sales, I genuinely don't think I was really any good at it. Not in like to do myself a disservice. I don't think I was great at like actively listening for the purposes of providing someone a solution. I had the anxiety, so I was constantly like freaking out while I was trying to connect with a human. Like, there were a lot of things that weren't like really tweaked. And even though these few years have been hard, I'd say it was in the last probably 3 years where I actually went from being like an okay performer to someone that could actually deliver, And it's funny because like I say like, I would wake up and I would cry and then I'd get on with my day. And like, that was all really tough. But it kind of gave me like an inner strength, and it showed me that even if something really is tough and you push through it, you eventually will get it, And it's so annoying because I'm like, I want to do the things I really enjoy. It's like, well, I was forced to do the things I didn't enjoy, and now like it's given me so much, in terms of like this 6-month window. Don't get me wrong. After the 6 months, I'm broke. It's done for me. Yeah, I actually need to start looking for a job at 4 months to make sure that I'm good. You know? But that's fine, mate. That's I'm gonna do that. So that's absolutely cool. So yeah, mate. Um, so where are you in this goal right now? So you've got the YouTube, you've got your social media accounts, and you've got this vision of like 6 revenue streams. Like, how are you pacing towards this goal right now?
So our revenue, we have 4. I would say we've got 4 pillars active. Ideally, I would like to have 7. So okay. Obviously, we're monetized on YouTube, but we don't get anywhere near the views to be making enough on that at the moment. Yeah. So but we monetize. That's the first hurdle, and then just doing what we can from that. Mm-hmm. Really, I'd like to be doing 200 or 300. If I could do 200 or 300 pounds, for each one of those, it would make our life much easier. So, we've got Amazon affiliates, so that's set up and that's active. We do all right. We don't set the world alight on that. We do all right. Mm-hmm. We do some affiliate stuff for an insurance company, for caravan and motorhome insurance. So we do all right on that as well. Probably about 20% of the way there, maybe.
Okay.
Long way to go. But the first 20% will be harder than the last 20%.
Yeah, 100%. And when it comes to, like, I think, you mentioned that you and your partner are a team right now. Has it always been an organic way of working, or have you guys learned how to be a team, share a vision? Like, what's that journey been like over this year?
To be fair, we've just always sort of been like this, really. I think it's not one where we've had to sort of, like I say, she's the technological one. I'm the ideas person. She's the technological one.
Yeah.
And that's just that. She gets frustrated at me because I say to her, I'll say, "Oh well, I want to do this to the website or whatever. I want this on there," and she'll say, "Yeah, okay." And then like 20 minutes later, I'll be like, "Well, have you done that for me yet?" And then she'll be like, "Well, no, I haven't because I'm still doing that other thing that you asked me to do." I'm like, "Oh right, okay." And then I'll be like, "Well, do you know what I mean?" So she gets right off me for that. But in terms of like a dynamic, to be fair, I think we're an amazing team. Really, we don't consider like. Our motorhome's probably 7 meters long by 2 meters, maybe 2.3 meters.
Yeah,
it's a short space to have 3 living humans, and somebody works full time and somebody that works part time.
Yeah,
obviously with a baby. Yeah. So how we don't strangle each other sometimes, I don't know. Just that we always seem to get on pretty well, actually.
That's awesome. Do you guys? In terms of keeping in touch with the family, like, have you guys got a structure around that, or is it just like what you just decide to call sometimes? Or
I'm a mummy's boy. I am. So I speak to me. I am, honestly. I am. So we, So my mum gets FaceTimed for the lad as much as anything else or whatever. Yeah. So I speak to my mum once a day in the morning normally, and probably once in the afternoon. She's just been diagnosed with MND as well, which is an absolute nightmare. So we found that out in maybe July time, just before we came back out traveling again.
Yeah.
Like I say, that's murked the water a little bit or whatever. So we always I speak to her twice a day or whatever. Always to mute your technology really now. Like I say, you can just, especially with Wi-Fi, you can just quite easily just FaceTime or WhatsApp.
You're making me look bad, man. I don't think I call my mom enough. I think when she sees it, she's going to come at me too. If you kind of reflect on the journey that you've had so far, specifically like in terms of like building out these revenue streams, what would you say are the things that you feel most proud of? And it doesn't have to be in any order, just whatever comes to mind. Like, what are you most proud of?
So I think when we came back in May, we we had so much stuff to do. So we had a camper van at the time, we had the caravan, I had a storage unit in Stockport, and people that go traveling and then come back to go traveling again. So many people get stuck back in the UK. They never manage to get back out or whatever. And I think the fact that we managed to come back, do everything that we said that we were going to do, with the exception of selling the camper van, to do everything that we said that we were going to do, and get back out. And we're very good at saying that we're going to do something and then following it through. Mm-hmm. So if we say, what, we're going to come back to Morocco and we're going to come here for 6 months, it's a banker pretty much. That's going to get done. Yeah. So I'm most proud of the fact that we managed to do everything that we said that we were going to do so far and get back out, and to give us to put us in a position where we can continue to grow our social media profiles and grow the content. And because, like I say, it's something which a lot of people are interested in, especially traveling with a baby, because people just instantly think that, once you've got a baby, it's got to be in a house somewhere. Mm-hmm. Or whatever. The thought of getting a baby and taking a baby out and traveling with him and all that sort of stuff, it's something that a lot of people would like to do, but whether it's courage or means or ability, I say a lot of people, one thing that a lot of people say, for the nice ones, the 99% of the nice ones, is, I never had the courage to do what you guys have done.
Yeah,
I'm sort of living my dream or experiencing my dream through you guys doing it, which is nice, really.
Yeah. And I think that, when you said normalize, you feel like it's normalized a little bit. I think on one hand, it could be taken as a slightly disappointing thing that it's normalized, but now that you've kind of paired it with that sentence, I almost feel like we all deserve to have these things that we envision for ourselves become normalized at some point.
Yeah.
It's almost like a huge win that this is now a normalized experience for you, because now that you've done this, you can, you've now that you've done it, you've set new goals for yourself, which you're clearly excited about.
Yeah.
And in the setting of those goals, I guess, if we kind of took that same question and flipped it, what are some of the things you found most challenging over this past year?
Being away from my family, we've always been a close family, close to my sister and that, my nephews. As a proper one, probably being away from my family, I've found that one of the more challenging things. And access to good bacon. You know what I mean? Because for some reason they just don't. No, I know it sounds silly, and brown sauce.
No, I get it.
Is that they don't do brown sauce anywhere other than the UK, from what I can gather. Yeah. Just nowhere seems to do. It's difficult in Morocco anyway, but even in Spain or France, you just can't. I just don't do bacon properly. Do you know what I mean? I like that. Oh, sausages is the same. So food, not bacon and sausage specifically, but I do like UK food and family.
Yeah.
I love bacon though. On a side note,
I'm imagining the story of your life or your autobiography. Food and family, and then open brackets and bacon, of course.
yeah, pretty much so. Yeah, that'll be the name of me. That'll be the name of my memoirs.
Yeah. Another question that I've been wanting to ask. You saw in our email, we kind of outlined our position, and where we are, and why we wanted to connect with you. What was it about what you read in our email that led you to kind of lend some time to us today? You've got so many things on, you've got so many goals. What is it that led you to want to, set an hour aside to hang out?
Because I think that, well, a couple of things really. So, the fact you've reached out in the first place is always nice. People love talking about themselves, of which I am one of those people that like talking about myself and talking about my family and stuff like that. And I think that you have got a mission of some sort. So anything that we could do to help, would be, why wouldn't we? It's an hour of someone's time.
Thank you, mate. I really, really appreciate that. And I think as a team, we'll keep in touch and give you updates on how we get on. Again, it'll either go really well, and even if it doesn't, we're gonna have some amazing memories. And you're officially a part of those. So there's a huge thanks coming from our team to yours.